Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Happy Shochu'sday, number 114, coming to you live from both Tokyo and simultaneously Fukuoka, Japan. Christopher and Steven here. Happy Shochu'sday and Kanpai to all of you out there around the world.
Kanpai,
Sorry.
Christopher. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Um, it's where are we? We're at the end of July now, which is crazy to me. I don't know how we got here so quick.
Right?
Um, I think everything's moving at the speed of sound, and I just barely know which way is up. But things have been happening, and you have been busy.
I
Is
have
I
been, and
Yeah.
as you can hear from my throat, my voice, uh, it has caught up with me. So I've had two negative COVID tests in the last 4 days, so I'm fairly certain this is just a run-of-the-mill cold. But it's the first time I've been sick since 2019. Wearing a mask really helps. Social distancing.
Right, right.
So yeah, but yeah, I've been running ragged. Obviously, Tokyo a couple weekends ago, where we had quite a busy schedule, and then coming back, I was uh, invited to go visit the Tensei Distillery in Kagoshima, in Shibushi,
Right.
Kagoshima,
Uh-huh.
to um, to learn how to make Baisen Mugi Shochu, a roasted barley shochu,
Nice.
which was a pretty cool experience. Um, the distillery is mostly known for sweet potato, but they do some oddball stuff, right? They've got a brand where they actually add salt water. It's actually purified seawater, as I understand it. They add to the second fermentation in an ode to when the Shinto priests used to throw salt around distilleries to give you a good fermentation. And it's an
Mm-hmm.
interesting drink. What's that? Hyake is the name of that brand. Um,
Right. Yeah. It
is that
is
right?
Hyake.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Mugi Hokka, which is actually part of the Honkaku Spirits portfolio, is the roasted barley shochu that they make, and it's hard to find in Japan. They don't
It
make a
really
lot of it.
is. Yeah.
And when they contacted me, they're making it in July, and I'm like, who makes shochu in July in southern Kagoshima? And when I visited, they said, well, you guys at Honkaku Spirits ordered too much. Um, so he took me to the
Sorry.
Takaya-san took me to their aging tank, and it was down to the last bits. It's a large tank, and it was mostly empty. And you could see the rings of as the
Yeah,
tank
had
had been
they?
empty with.
Okay.
And the most recent Honkaku Spirits order was a big one, and that emptied the tank basically. So like, we got to make more for you guys, so you got to come down and help. And so I took a day trip. I was down in the morning, worked the afternoon, and then came back. Obviously, I didn't get the full experience, but I got the gist of what the mash bill's like, what that roasted barley shochu is like. Did a little mixing of pots and that sort of thing. They're doing 4 batches, and each batch will yield about, what they say, 10,000 bottles. So they're restocking for Mugi Hokka. But
They
it's
better
kind of
they better make
amazing.
a lot more because
Yeah,
people in America love it. So
yeah. It was really interesting. Is that you could taste the fermentations at different days, right?
nice,
So I was there for
nice.
the last. They were building the last fermentation, so you could taste day one, which we had just made, which didn't really taste much of anything. Day two, three, four, and by day four, some of the roastiness comes out. It almost tasted like a little bit of a weak bitter coffee. Um,
Interesting.
but the earlier ones tasted much more grain forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but it's really really subtle. The coffee note is really subtle, but it's really once it's distilled that you get all of that coffee dark chocolate that comes out. So really really interesting product. Uh, Fun to go down there and see the production firsthand. Last time I had visited them, they were not uh, manufacturing. I
Uh-huh.
just got a tour of the distilleries. This time I got to roll up my sleeves, do a little work, and
Yeah, cool.
yeah. So it was
Um,
interesting because, again, in stylus shochu, I have not had a hand in helping make it all. Has been barley shochu, so that was a little bit of a blind spot for me. So it's nice to be able to do that,
nice.
even if it was only for a
This
few hours.
comment from Chris over on YouTube. He got his hands on a bottle of the Yamato Zakura 24, which is available in California. and obviously not available in Japan because it's not how we bottle stuff over here. But
That's right.
generally speaking, but yeah, that you're gonna enjoy that, Chris.
Yeah,
It
and
works
that's
well
actually
any way you drink it.
maybe we go to the upcoming podcast episode, which should be in your feeds tomorrow morning. We are going to talk about silly liquor laws,
Ah,
and
yeah. Right,
Yamato's
where is
Liquor
it? Where is it? Where is it?
24%
Damn it! There it is.
is
Okay, there's the ticker.
yep. So we're talking about silly liquor laws, silly alcohol laws throughout the U.S. We're U.S. focused because that's what we know best as Americans. But I think it's going to be entertaining for everyone. I finished listening to the episode this morning, and it will drop tomorrow morning for the U.S. Tonight here in Japan, and we take the gloves off. We don't really pull punches.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, it's
I don't
it's a
really
fun one.
remember the conversation, but we got through it pretty quick, and we were both happy with it at the end. So hey,
Yeah, I think if alcohol regulatory regimes are not your thing, this still might be worth listening to. It was a lot of fun. We had some fun with it, so hopefully you will too. Yeah, but the I guess the end of the trip, or the kind of 2-week whirlwind for me, if we go back to the original heading, there was actually, yep, that's good.
Main event. Okay.
Yeah, the Fukuoka Spirits event was actually the largest in-person consumer-facing show in Japan since COVID began. There were 80 makers in the PayPay Dome, which is the baseball stadium for the local Fukuoka baseball team, and we won't name the team. And but it's a legit dome. It's a 45,000 foot, or 40 or 45,000 person stadium, maybe even more. And they set up food trucks in the outfield, and then all of the stands for the shochu makers were around the rest of the ball field. Now they had put down tarps, so you weren't actually on the AstroTurf directly, but it was kind of fun to, you're walking over or something, and the texture under your feet changes, like, oh, I'm around second base now. It was kind of fun. But it was well socially distanced. I was actually quite impressed with how far apart they made the booths, and then they had tables set up for people who did want to enjoy some food and drink, and those were well spaced. You had to do a temperature check on your way in, which obviously doesn't necessarily make a big difference, but it seemed reasonably well organized. And to their credit, they didn't cancel it, because despite the fact that COVID cases are spiking right now with vaccines and current treatments and things, I think it's much less dangerous than it had been. Of course, there's always the risk of long COVID if you have a bad case, but it's
sure.
They didn't panic and cancel it. And from what I've heard, at least so far, there hasn't been any adverse events to having held the event, because people were very, very good about keeping their masks on, except for when they were sampling, except for when they were eating. So I was quite impressed with the social responsibility demonstrated by the consumers. And then the other thing is, not many people came. So I think people just basically decided that they weren't going to take the risk, right? So people who were interested and wanted to be there were there. And people who were like, you know what? There might be a little risk there. I'm not going to show up. Now, it probably wasn't great for the organizers.
I'm sure it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they weren't in it to make money. So
right. I mean, yeah, it was 800 yen ticket, so about $6.50 day of. It was 700 yen in advance, so about $5.50. And then it was all you could sample, like from 80 different makers. And
what we would normally refer to as a shit show, but apparently it didn't turn into that.
I only saw one person who was visibly overserved, and he was an older gentleman who was not in good condition, and the staff were taking care of him. But everyone else seemed to be handling themselves reasonably well. And then
send him home. Just wave him home.
Yeah.
Wave him around third base.
But the makers who were there seemed to be glad to see people, and it was nice because there weren't so many customers, there weren't so many guests. You had more time to talk to the makers and learn more about their drinks. You weren't 3 or 4 deep at the tables. It was you and a couple of other guests who were listening to the stories and having conversations. And I met some makers I'd never met before. I was able to see some people I hadn't seen for a long time. So it was really nice to be able to have that sense of normalcy. Of course, I woke up the next day, and actually I felt fine because the event ended at 5 p.m. And I didn't overindulge. But it was the next evening when I started the beginnings of this cold, and I was like a little panicked. And then I went to see my doctor yesterday and had my COVID test, and everything's fine. As far as the COVID goes, it's just the annoyance of having actually gotten sick for the first time in years.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know how
And
nice that's been? I'm sure
I
you feel
know.
the same way. Right?
Oh yeah. I mean, the only thing I deal with is allergies, and while that's no walk in the park, I'll take that any day of the week over a cold or the flu. You know.
Sure, sure.
So yeah. Well, that's cool. That sounds like it looked like it was an enjoyable event. I'm sure it was a nice reunion for a lot of folks. Blast from the past, nostalgic even, and hopefully there's more of that to come. And
Sure.
I'm sure
I
there
think
will be.
Yeah, no doubt. I think if people want to see a little bit what it was like, go to my Instagram. Not the Japan Distilled Instagram. I actually did this with my Shochu Danji Instagram. And I did about a few minute sort of live video of the event. Unfortunately, I didn't take a lot of pictures. I just, was too busy talking to people and getting to know some new brands and catching up with old friends. So I didn't really document the way that I normally would, but I'll try to get better about that. And the other nice thing they had about it was actually where they could make a little bit of money is you could buy bottles. So if you tried something you
Oh,
liked,
interesting.
you could take a bottle home. And so I sort of did my tour. First, I did a walking tour where I just checked it out, saw who was there, didn't really have anything to drink, just talked to a couple of people, but I was just sort of having a little bit of a, wander. And then once I decided where I wanted to visit, I started going back and trying different things and spending more time at each table. And I was thinking, kind of making a list in my head about which products I would want to buy, what I want to have at home. And I ended up coming home with 3 bottles, which I think was a reasonable number. There were people lugging out like 12 or 15, which looked very heavy. But yeah, I got what did I get? I got an undiluted sweet potato shochu, so foolproof sweet potato shochu from distillery name escapes me. I had mentioned it to you. Let me see. Yeah. I know it was there's another distillery by the same name. So I had
another distillery, Yoshinaga.
Oishi.
Oishi? Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah, so
There
Oishi
are
Distillery in Kagoshima. There's another one in Kumamoto. Pronounced a little bit differently, probably different kanji, whatever, but maybe it's the same. I don't know. Haven't ever thought about it. But the Oishi Kagoshima bottle's right here. Hold on.
Yeah, they make tsurumi, which is a really, really old school. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So this one, 41%, so a little bit higher than you expect from a sweet potato. Really, really lovely aroma and flavor. So I was very impressed with that. The other distillery was actually from Oita, Bungo.
Yeah.
Who makes their
Meijo, sure.
Yeah, they're actually, and I had them in the Rakuen set, but I wasn't really familiar with their products. But it turns out they make some really cool stuff. It's all barley, like it normally is in Oita. And they're the furthest south distillery in the prefecture, so they're basically on the border of Miyazaki. But now excited to go visit them at some point too, because I was really impressed with what I had from them. I got their yellow koji standard barley shochu, and then also the genshu of that same brand, the undiluted. Okay. So a couple of nice bottles there as well. So yeah, so a fun event.
Yeah, nice. I just had flashed Dila Lee's greetings up on the board. Dila, if you're still with us, happy Shochu'sday. And same to everybody else out there. Let's move on to booze news. Sure. And this is actually related to the ticker tape at the bottom. Podcasts. We have been entered in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. and we would like to ask a favor. um, now, this is a you can vote once per email address, but you have to sign up. You have to register an email address, and I think you have to validate your email address because they only want people voting once. And I'm going to show you kind of what we're looking at. This is not the I've already voted, so it's kind of interesting. But once you've registered for this People's Choice thing, let's see, share. And that's not it. Chrome tab. Let's go with this one. Yep, that's it. Okay. So once you've registered, you can go into this little portal, and it has a bunch of drop downs here. Now, you are obviously going to want to search for Japan Distilled, and where you search for it first and foremost, and it's not here because I already voted. Once you vote, the drop downs for that category disappear, so that's a little confusing. But first of all, you want to look for the education category, and click on that drop down and select Japan Distilled. And Stephen and I will be very appreciative. But actually, I found this morning there's another place. There's an all-encompassing People's Choice category at the top. All right, click in that. It has every one of the nominations listed together. So you can vote for us twice with a single email address. You vote for us in the People's Choice category and then in the education category for Japan Distilled. Then after you're done making your selections, go down to the bottom and click Save Nominations. And then you're good to go. And if you want to be an even better friend to the Japan Distilled podcast, then go in and use several different email addresses. And make sure to, if you can catalog that through screenshots or through video recording your screen, then one of us will need to buy you a drink, I think, if you can go through and do it multiple times. As you know, we, and especially Stephen, works very hard on that podcast, and we're very proud of it. And we feel like it does, it constitutes an educational resource, I think. We hope, and we also hope it's enjoyable to listen to. So do us a favor. We are
education category.
That's true. We are looking for a little bit of support. So if you've been listening to the podcast, this is the way that you can do us a favor. So please don't hesitate.
Sure.
I'm going to stop sharing.
And I guess we should talk about our Patreon as well. I promise we're going to be putting up the, let's see, I want to see. I think, this is basically, I can share this. We've created a Patreon, and we are putting up very soon the day in the life of a shochu distillery.
The full version, right? The
full version,
completely connected.
Yeah, completely all three the morning, afternoon, and evening work all put together. And so you select the way it works is you select a membership level. And it's basically a monthly support for the podcast. We don't plan to make money from this. We're going to use this to offset our own expenses regarding Rich's amazing editing, which we pay him to do. And then we may use it for some advertising and that sort of thing as well. So this is not a get rich quick scheme for Christopher and I. But at each level, you get different, they're tiered. If you go to the UQ Awamori level, you get a shout out on the podcast, and you get invited to our private Discord channel where you can interact with us. And then at the $10 level, you get those plus live event VIP access. So whenever we are in the US or other countries and we organize events, you're going to get invited to those, early ticket access to those events, and then early access to new offers, which are going to include potentially, hopefully, future private bottlings of various spirits that we love that will only be available to Patreon members. So I don't know if we've had anybody sign up yet. I think we have not, because we really haven't promoted it much. We are Oh,
Oh,
we have some. Oh
no,
wow.
you might not want to share all that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what's on there, but I haven't. Yeah, I
yeah.
haven't. I don't have access to the back end, so.
Okay. Yeah. Let me stop sharing screen immediately. Sorry about that.
um, yeah,
Um,
that's cool. And
yeah,
yeah, we'll need to make sure that the more people who sign up, the more we'll need to
that's right.
make
Now it looks
sure
like we
that
got some
we're
shout outs to give to
taking.
folks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Maybe that's another thing we can do. Shout some folks out. Uh,
yeah.
cool. Very cool. Let's see. There, the last banner, because we're at 22 minutes now. The last banner of the day, as usual, is newly opened, and I don't know. I should have thought about this
Yeah.
before.
Well, I've been on a little bit of a Kokuto Shochu kick. So my newly opened is this guy from
Oh, I
Amami.
follow that.
This is Ukare Kenmun, which is a Kokuto Shochu from the makers of Alento. As you can see, very old school packaging. This is a 500 ml, I think. Yep, 500 milliliter, 30% alcohol. I love the old school form factor of this glass. It's just, it's fun. It's easy to hold. You got the little
The
divot
ridge.
here, and there's also one at the bottom. So yeah, it's a nice one. Oh, it's
I happened. This actually legit opened very recently. So,
nice.
Jogo, which is another Kokuto sugar shochu from the same island, the main island. This is Amami Oshima Shuzo, closest distillery to the airport. I guess I believe that's true. That is true. No, it's not. Is it not? Is Machida closer? Crap. I forgot the geography. Which one do you drive past first? I think Amami Oshima is closer. I could be wrong.
Maybe
I'm probably wrong. 50-50 chance.
Yeah, but it's one of the two closest distilleries. How's that?
That works, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, both of us thinking the same way. It's summertime, Kokuto sugar shochu, mix it with some sparkling water. Perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, just got word that some of our Kokuto product, and I'm not allowed to give any exact details on this, but got some pretty good scores from a well-respected publication. So I'm stoked to be able to talk about that, but can't talk about it until next month, unfortunately. And we will announce that as soon as we are permitted to, the scores that came in. Anyway, I guess that's kind of a wrap for today, unless I'm missing anything.
Like maybe just reiterate that we will have a new podcast episode dropping.
There you go.
Or tomorrow morning in the U.S., tonight in Japan, on silly liquor laws. So I'm just going to put the finishing touches on the show notes. Rich has a couple of extra tweaks to make. Christopher got quite animated, and so we needed to bleep a couple things out because we do want to be a family friendly podcast.
Was I letting him fly? I probably
A couple of times.
That's one thing. These laws, man, they get me going. And anything that causes confusion for the consumer or limits consumer access and choice, man, that pisses me off. So there's a lot of stuff to be pissed off about, as you'll find as if you listen to the podcast. So enjoy.
It's funny because we try to keep the language on the show clean, simply so that we don't have to put a sort of restricted or warning adult mature content tag on the podcast, because the downloads just plummet because it doesn't get promoted. Right? Of course, we only want people of legal drinking age to be listening, right? That's really who our target audience is, but we don't want to label it as adult or mature, because then we'll get a quarter of the downloads because people won't discover the show through organic or algorithmic ways.
Gotcha.
So we try to keep the language out of it, even though it's really fun.
So I had to be censored. That's awesome. All right, I'll try to keep. Well, as long as we don't talk about these stupid rules, then I probably won't. It won't get me overheated.
It's kind of the only the second time we've had kind of a breaking news podcast related to regulatory sorts of things. The first was when the whiskey standards were announced for Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we did an episode back in early 2021 about that, and now here we are in summer of 2022. So this might be a once a year thing where we have you fly off the handle on silly laws. But the funny thing is this actually was the rule change was actually was actually. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I got a phone call and I can't hear you now.
Switched over to your phone.
Because my phone is also connected to my. Oh, there it is. You're back.
Yeah.
Sorry. Where was I? Oh, this change is a net benefit, right? It's that now in New York, with soft license, beer and wine license, you can sell Japanese shochu if it's 24% or less. So it's good for shochu makers and New York consumers, but it's not really going to change the label mess from California because they're still going to use that same packaging.
No, it's going to be an interesting tug of war for a while. Hopefully California loses. Hopefully they end up adapting and correcting their own law to seal that loophole because it's dumb.
Yeah.
And it's I've used the word before, I'll use it again. It's fraudulent. So,
Sure.
Yeah, willful mislabeling, not cool. And so,
totally,
and
totally
the
agree.
government there just tolerates it. It's like, oh, it's cool. We'll let them misinform our consumers. No problem. Oh, come on, wake up.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
you can
Anyway,
see I'm
there's
starting
all
to get
kinds of
pissed off again.
Yeah.
So let's cut this one
I know.
short.
We just take a couple of pokes to get Christopher going again. So that's a little teaser about what's going to be on the show.
Yeah, geez.
It's quite an amusing episode. I think people should have a listen if they're at all interested. We always appreciate those of you who do listen, no matter what the topic. It means a lot to us because, as Christopher said, we do put a lot of effort into it and really enjoy doing it. It's rewarding in its own right. But whenever we get feedback and people are engaged and enjoying, that's fantastic. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. Very good. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for being here. Steven, good to see you again. Glad you're feeling a little bit better. To everybody out there, we'll be back again 7 days from now, same time, same place, for another edition, the 115th edition of Shochu'sday. Until we meet again, wherever you are in the world, be happy, be healthy, be safe, keep smiling. And from both of us here in Japan, a very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.
Kanpai.